the church Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Hello guys, welcome back to SPTV for another one of our segments we're calling What is Scientology Afraid of? And we've been discussing executive Debbie Cook, the crook. The crook Debbie Cook is who we are discussing today, contextualizing ABC News with their reporting from Dan Harris, who keeps showing up in the story no matter what we look for. He's always showing up, ABC News. We're going to continue to put together all the pieces of the puzzle that Debbie Cook keeps claiming conveniencing nihilism so that she gets her way with what she wants, which is cash checks indefinitely from Monique Yingling. So that is going to be called out because Debbie Cook has had not a shred of self-awareness or remorse for all the institutionalized systemic abuse of minors that she herself had full oversight over and commanded as the so-called captain of the Fort Harrison Hotel for 17 plus years with 25 plus years in this Sea Org. So we're going to continue pushing back on all the falsehoods that she has been allowed to put on the record and all the things that she keeps telling one part of the situation, but not the rest. She's offering one part of the facts, but not the rest. So we're going to continue diving into that because there's no way for anyone to understand what the hell's going on if we have people like Debbie Cook that are willing to manipulate everything so that they get paid checks from Monique Yingling. So let's go and continue reviewing the video.
Debbie Cook has testified in court that she saw Miss Cabbage punch a fellow Scientology executive.
You punched him in the face?
Yes. I've never seen anything like this before, ever.
And you had no inkling that it was even possible?
No, I never conceived of that. I mean, I've been in Scientology.
The question was very simple, Debbie Cook. You had no inkling that that was even possible. And just like that, you start bumbling around, seeing how you're going to CYA. Because in case you didn't know, you should have had an inkling. Because you yourself were slapping minors that didn't make their quotas at your little executive council meetings. You were there humiliating minors in front of large groups of adults who all stood there watching you berate Bryn Canetta, the student MAA who was 13 years old. 13 years old is what a student MAA ethics officer of Debbie Cook was of an age. And this woman just screamed, yelled obscenities, profanities, all manner of expletives at Bryn for daring to have something flap on Debbie Cook's lines. That's what she would call it. How dare you create a problem where I have to now go and fix it for you? And just so you guys get a little bit more context, the type of staff meetings that Debbie Cook ran every Thursday, no fail, had two little sections to them. One was called Flaps and Handlings, And then general business announcements. So the flaps and handlings, you guys, is where Debbie Cook would then expect all the minors that were inside those hotels, where she was employing them and having them do responsibilities that are unthinkable that she had underage kids be doing. But there she was, screaming and yelling at Bryn Canetta in front of everyone, and everyone just going, oh my God. And Bryn just had to say, yes, sir. You're right, sir. I'm so sorry, sir. I will never do this again, sir. I will do lower conditions, sir. I will go to ethics, sir. I will fix this, sir. I promise you, sir. That's the level of creep this woman is, just to set the record straight. So before you go, you had no inkling, you had no idea about what could go on, and you decide to make this all about David, whatever.
Scientology since I was 14 years old. I was on staff since I was 17. At that point, it had been more than 25 years being there. I'd never seen anything like that. It was inconceivable.
Well, yet again, with the lies about this being inconceivable, Debbie Cook, because it wasn't so inconceivable if it was happening right underneath your nose, right? How can you claim that it was inconceivable when you were doing worse than what David was doing? As far as I'm concerned, how many minors were inside your hotel? How many minors were in RTC? Now, Dave had access to his own minors, but you, Debbie Cook, had how many hundreds of minors in your hotel? Maybe you should start running some numbers and recalling that, so you stop lying on national TV, telling everyone how inconceivable it was that an adult man beat another adult. Like, literally, it's unbelievable how you're just like sitting there saying that on national TV, putting it on the public record. Unbelievable.
While she says Miscavige never hit her, she did testify that he ordered his secretary to do so.
Well, interesting, right, Debbie Cook? David Miscavige didn't even hit you, but you were hitting your juniors and other minors for not making their quota, for not producing enough, for not making enough money for you, for having things flap on your lines, is what you were calling it. Any inconvenience you had, you could scream, you could yell, you could throw phones, you could do whatever. No one could check you. So that's when you were having a jolly old time doing that. But when David sent an assistant to do something to you, that's when you really, that's what really rocked your boat. And you were like, oh yeah, I haven't seen anything like this in 25 years. Well, maybe you're right, Debbie Cook. Maybe you are right. No one did anything to you when you were running unhinged in that hotel all by yourself. It only happened after David started showing up more and more on your lines. So when a little bit of the poison that you were dishing out full time for 25 plus years to all the minors that had the utter misfortune of ever having anything to do with you, that's when you went, oh, I got to do something. I got to stand up for what is right and write my little email. So we're connecting the dots of your manipulation, in case you haven't noticed.
And she did it.
And she did it very hard. Yes.
Hard enough that you fell down?
Yes.
Why did he ask her to do this?
He was displeased about how I was answering a question, wasn't what he wanted to hear in some way.
Well, there you go with your projection again. Displeased with how I was answering a question. How were you treating minors, since you had hundreds of them underneath you? How were they being spoken to when you were not pleased with one of their answers, Debbie Cook? Perhaps you want to expand that on the public record, or write another email to tell everyone about that little aspect of your story that you're keeping to yourself for God knows what reason.
Did you feel like you could retaliate?
No, absolutely. You are definitely not able to retaliate.
That's right, Debbie Cook. Thank you for making our point yet again. When we were there in that hotel under your thumb, we could not retaliate. You could scream at us. You could humiliate us. You could lock us up in rooms. You could send us to get ethics handlings. You could literally make our life living hell. But you were having a jolly old time doing it. You could send me to a 2-year program locked up with a self-admitted, you know exactly what the hell I'm saying. And that was just great. That was just amazing. You're just so on top of the world then. So let's continue highlighting that, underlining it, and putting it in bold, circling it in red. So you start actually self-reflecting on your absurdities that you normalize for yourself, and how all of your adult choices literally were the reason that minors such as myself had their entire formative years stolen to go do your bidding, to go do your stupid stuff that you do in those hotels.
And listen to what she says Miscavige told his assistant to do on another occasion.
He told her to grab my finger and to break it if I don't answer the question.
And there it is, reporter Dan Harris. And listen to what his assistant. Dan Harris literally, there's this woman telling them, you guys, going to the press, who has not been in a cult, who has not been reading The Influence of L. Ron Hubbard, who went to a regular school, who are getting paid to do a job. And instead of actually reporting because they care, I mean, this woman is saying that her finger was being broken, but Dan cannot keep himself from name dropping religion and then the church and the religion and the religion and the church and the church and the religion and the church and the religion. A woman is telling you that a grown man ordered someone to go break her finger. Again, like, how is it that we have to make this point to you? How is that possible?
And so she grabbed my finger and bent it back, and my initial answer wasn't good enough, so she cranked it a little bit more, and she never did break it, but yes, that happened.
Well, Debbie Cook, you broke a lot of minors. So yet again, shout out to your projections, because while you didn't get your little finger broken, thank goodness for that, other minors that were literally, what, in those hotels, exactly what, because you read their ethics folder, exactly what, because you were watching the videos, exactly what, because you were getting the KRs, exactly what, because you were putting them on a routing form to ethics to get investigated and interrogated ad nauseum. Let's all watch. Let's have a little viewing party here while we see what is Savannah Royce talking about, that she had what with who, and who else was involved, and where else was it, and where did they do it, and how many times did they do it. And yeah, let's pull all the details. Let's really put the ethics in, is what you were calling it. So yet again, we go into your projections are nothing but pathetic.
Did you ever think to yourself, maybe I'm in the wrong church?
No, I never had that thought that I was in the wrong church.
There you go with the church word, you guys. Reporter Dan Harris is literally being told that this woman almost had her finger broken, but he can't help himself to call that church. Perhaps you want to write us an email, Dan Harris, and tell us if that's what they do in your church, if you even go to one.
I think that somebody else was in the wrong church.
I mean, again, Debbie Cook, why the hell are you laughing? What the hell is so funny? What in the hell is so funny to you right now? Someone else was in the wrong church. Are you kidding me? Like,
Or someone else is in the wrong place, I should say. This doesn't belong in church at all.
well, thank you once again, Debbie Cook, because you couldn't have made our points better. What in the hell is going on, and how the hell does this belong in church? And why the hell are you laughing? What the hell is so funny to you right now? Seriously, like, you really owe it to yourself to think about what in the hell is so funny to you that someone else is in the wrong church. Ha ha ha. So funny. Like, it's not funny. It's not funny what was done to us as kids by all of y'all. It's not funny at all. We don't find it funny. We are not laughing. I have to talk to, you have no idea how many second, third, fourth, fifth generation kids that are literally on life support because they were thrown out of your hotels as roadkill. And Monique Yingling is nowhere to be found to give them checks to keep their mouth shut. They could literally care less. Because you know what? Since the media only cares about what you have to say, and they have no care in the world that they're getting played, and they're going to look like utter, disgusting idiots that literally are in the business of laundering the image of you. Ghislaine Maxwell on steroids. So yes, ABC News. Yes, Disney Company, Corporation, legal departments. Y'all that run ABC News, that bought that news station. Please start figuring out what in the hell you're doing these stories. And what the hell are you doing paying Dan Harris to go talk to this woman to pretend that he's a journalist while none of you really actually cared whatsoever? You haven't cared at all. And Disney, in the business of making money from children, no less. Was that never asked of you in your, interviewing process? Are you aware that you are coming here to work for Disney and that we do make money on our end users, which are mostly children? So please, woke people from Disney and CEO of Disney, write us a letter and tell us how your news corporation could have given not less of a shred of an F about any of the things that you've all been monetizing and cashing checks, because that's what this is all about. Every last adult has their own cashing their checks agenda. Debbie Cook cashes her checks. Monique Yingling is cashing checks. ABC News is cashing checks. Dan Harris is cashing checks. Disney's cashing checks. All of your stockholders are cashing their own checks. So why are y'all cashing checks on the pain, trauma inflicted on kids? Please think about that and, put out a statement and start writing it and start explaining it. Go to your publicists, go make them write something that makes sense, because we cannot make any less sense of what the hell is going on. It makes no sense. And we're pushing back on your corruption. That is literally the reason that kids are still stuck in that hotel, because none of y'all care. If you're not getting a quick check, couldn't care less. So think about that, Disney corporate woke executives. And think about that, ABC News, whoever the CEO is now. And go ask the questions of that other CEO that, gave the full approval to just run with a fake narrative about how we are at war without a gun. And please, please, please stop insulting our intelligence. Please. The few of us that have been able to come up with air after being exploited and abused ad nauseum have never been helped by any of you. And why that matters, the only reason that it matters is that as long as you don't help the kids that are stuck at the hotel, who's going to do it? Well, we're going to do it because people are paying attention and they're sick of the runaround that y'all are doing for your own ulterior motives. So yes, start going to your legal and PR departments and start crafting statements and start opening books and start figuring out what in the hell is going on in y'all's corporations that couldn't be more corrupt. Corruption breeds corruption, breeds corruption, breeds corruption. This hotel couldn't operate if it didn't have the type of environment for the corruption, the bacteria, the virus to breathe and have oxygen. So stop providing oxygen to literal child abuse corruption, because you're not doing anybody any favors, but you're certainly catching a ton of goddamn checks. And we're here to call you out on every last ounce of this horrendous, disgusting thing. Thank you for all of you who held space for this very difficult conversation. Thank you for listening and acknowledging that no child should ever be abused in America under these conditions. Thank you for acknowledging that the Constitution actually says that slavery was abolished. So why child slavery was brought back in the form of a hotel, we're waiting to hear from every last PR department and legal department of Disney, ABC News, specifically, since y'all keep showing up monetizing on this story. Put your money where your mouth is and stop playing us. Stop playing us. There are children's lives at stake. And maybe you don't care, but you know what? We care. So you're gonna get bypassed and we're gonna do your job. Thank you.